Hi, my name is Dave Blanchard. I'm the CEO of the Mandino Group, and I've been asked to do a little video on a very specific topic. It's called systemic thought. Systemic thoughts. We think in three different dimensions. Intrinsic thought, our thoughts about things beyond value, like people. Extrinsic thought, thoughts about things, the tangible world in which we live in. And systemic thought, which is dealing just with thinking about thinking. Now, interestingly, in this particular area of thought, systemic thought, we think dualistically, all or nothing, right or wrong, win or lose, life or death. There's no Pantone color schedule. There's no gradation. There's no gray scale. It's either or, either or. That's why when life goes on tilt and we're thinking systemically, we can't stop thinking about it till we get it fixed. If somebody says something wrong, we want to fix them. We want to correct it because the world is either all or nothing, life or death, black or white. That's a systemic thought. Now, interestingly, we've had the privilege of doing assessments with the intentional creation assessment and now the habit finder assessment on over 100,000 home-based business owners. And we've discovered some very powerful things about systemic thought. One of them is this: entrepreneurial, independent thinkers have 7 habits of thinking in common, and 2 of those are systemic thoughts. And those 2 thoughts are out of balance 97% of the time. Now, out of balance doesn't necessarily make them a bad thing, just something we'll want to manage. These 2 thought processes are like a fully charged fire hose. And if we're not managing, they are just flipping around, just knocking things over, causing all kinds of challenges in our lives. So let me share them with you, how they work, and then just a couple of ideas of how you can manage that fire hose. Hold it and point it in directions. These are very powerful thoughts. The first one we call analytical. This is thinking about thinking, and it's how obsessive do we think? That's what we're measuring. Well, entrepreneurial people 97% of the time think obsessively, even effortlessly. Consider this question: what do you do to quiet your mind? Many anesthetize this mind with alcohol and drugs just to shut it off. Others watch mindless television. Some do yoga, some do exercise. Some say to me they meditate, and I always say in response, good luck. This thought process is so powerful, it is constantly going. We wake up to it, it wakes us up in the middle of the night, we go to sleep to it, it's always going, it's always going. What a gift. We don't have to turn on our mind. It's already in process. We give it a problem, it'll think on it until the problem is solved. It'll also get very attached to its ideas. And I'm talking about a third person. It will need to be right. Well, here we are, sitting in the observer's chair of our life, looking over at those unhealthy habits of thinking, and this very powerful thought process wants us to be attached to an idea, and we need to be right. Just know this, great discovery. When we need to be right, the other person only has one option, and that's to be wrong. And when we are wrong, it pushes self-esteem buttons, intrinsic measurements about our own worth. Could be questions about our worth, worthiness, ability, character, beliefs, contribution. Can you see it? Have you ever been in a situation where someone had a position of authority over you and you had a great idea and you got summarily dismissed? They were right, you got to be wrong, and you got the same buttons pushed? You want to look in your assessment of what the measurements are in that area called myself or self-worth to see what buttons get pushed when you're in that kind of a position. So just knowing that, wow, I have to be very careful. I've got this giant fire hose. I want to go out and manage it. One of the things I'm going to want to learn how to do is find good in a person's idea, how to let go of the need to be right, because these thought processes crush people. The second measurement, also experience 97% of the time, measures not only how obsessively we think, but how vividly we think. Entrepreneurs have a tendency to have very vivid visualization. Now, 98% of the 97 use this thought process to go into the future, to a time when something's been accomplished, and start imagining what it's going to be like after that. That's called fantasy. Because when life shows up differently, we go from a norepinephrine euphoric state, a mental construct, a new reality, an expectation, concrete condition for happiness, to this depressive state of cortisol surge. It's been released to heal wounds and speed up metabolism because we're being attacked by an enemy called reality. Our amygdala, our fight or flight center, starts sending out an army of fear dendrites that shuts down our prefrontal cortex, our higher levels of empathy, practical judgment, common sense, and we're rendered emotionally paralyzed. Og talks about this in scroll number 5, and here we find a great secret. The scroll is, I'll live this day as if it is my last. We could also look at Eckhart Tolle, who says, live in the now. Live in the now. That's what Og's trying to share with us. He says at the beginning of this scroll, he says, I will not waste a moment mourning yesterday's defeats, yesterday's misfortunes, yesterday's aches of the heart, for why should I throw good after bad? Good question. Then he says, also, should I concern myself over events which I may never witness? Should I torment myself with problems that may never come to pass? No. So we don't want to live tomorrow. We don't live in the tomorrow. We don't want to live in the past. We live in the present. What we know about the present is 10 hours from now, it's still the present. 10 days from now, it's still now. It's still the present. So we learn to live in the present. So we want to quiet this noise. The very first thing we do is say, I'm going to live present in the now. Number 2, I'm going to take the clay I've been given, my circumstances. I may not like them, but I'm going to take them, and I'm going to go into my mind to get an inspired idea, an intuitive impression, a creative solution for how I can take this clay and create more with it. Then at the end of the day, I'm going to celebrate that accomplishment. The next day, living in the now, I'm going to take my clay, go into my mind, get an inspired idea, an intuitive impression, a creative solution about how I can take this clay and create more with it. And at the end of the day, I'm going to celebrate. The secret to managing this noise is shifting from living in our mind and holding life hostage to expectation to living present in the now, going into our mind to get inspired ideas that ignite passion and drive action. Next, we want to take a look at this clay and say, am I really interested in taking this and creating more with it? Or do I just want my circumstances to change? Do I just want life to be easier and less stressful? Because if I do, I'm going to go into my mind, into the future, and I'm going to start fantasizing. Then when things turn out poorly, I'm going to catastrophize. Or I'm going to be constantly worrying and worrying and worrying, releasing more cortisol, more fear dendrites, and this false evidence, which will appear real because I'm experiencing it at a cellular level, this fear will impede my progress. I will be frustrated with life. I can almost touch it. I can almost taste it. Why can't I have it? What's wrong with me? Does God not love me? Can you hear all the noise? So we have this obsessive fire hose that's going like this, and then we start putting in an eyedropper of negativity, an eyedropper of fantasy, an eyedropper of a desire for ease or less stress. I would submit to you that the vast majority of this noise we're experiencing is because we are not going out and holding the end of this fire hose. And we, living in the now, intentionally pointing it in a direction with a desire to engage in life, embrace principles, connect, serve, create value, and contribute. We want to live. And so we take this thought process and we point it in a direction that gives us an inspired idea, an intuitive impression, creative solution. If you're wired to a functional MRI, we see part of your brain ignite. is normally dormant in a human being. Ignites our passion, drives our action. We take our clay, we create as much as we can with it, and at the end of the day, we celebrate the accomplishment. So just ask yourself, what do I do to quiet my mind? Next question. Why is it so noisy? Am I intentionally holding the end of this fully charged fire hose? Am I pointing it in the direction of seeking inspiration about who I can serve? Mentally rehearsing the next thing in my life to get inspired ideas about how I can do it better? Am I exploring possibilities, problem solving, planning, goal setting with it? Am I pointing it in those directions? Or is it just going like this and driving me crazy? Let us go out. Just grab a hold of the end of this. And let's make the decision to stand firmly planted in the now. Again, it's always the now. Let us reach out, touch that timeline of our life. Let us stay in this place, focused on what we have, getting inspired ideas about how we can create more. Create it, celebrate it. Create it, celebrate it. When we get an inspired idea and we act on it, we experience equanimity. Can you feel it? Equanimity, peace of mind. It's the peace of mind that comes when we are living in the now, acting on inspired ideas, passion-driven. Then we begin to experience joy in our journey. And the joy comes from inspired idea, acting on it as if it's an urgent assignment, and then experiencing something in our lives that we would not have had any other way. That's joy. Fantasy, counterfeit joy. Inspired idea, acting, creating, that's real joy. We want to live with equanimity. We want to have joy in the journey. So choose to be present in the now. Choose to take a hold of the end of this fire hose and control where it goes. Because the alternative is just a fully charged fire hose blowing our life apart. So, systemic thought. All or nothing, right or wrong, win or lose, life or death. We crush people with it. And we absolutely exhaust ourselves. Let's find the equanimity. Let's find that joy in the journey.